Hey, what's up, everybody? Let me just camera here. All right. So this week, Nutrition Corner. Welcome to Soul Focus TV. We're going to be talking about alcohol. So I know a bunch of people are bored at home and probably drinking a little bit more than they used to. So let's get into a little bit of what is actually going on when you're taking in the alcohol, what it's doing to your body, and the short-term and long-term effects, stuff like that. So first and foremost, let's be real. We all drink. We all lie to the doctor every time we go and tell them we drink like half as much as we actually do. It is what it is. But let's get to what it actually is and what it actually does. All right, so when you take alcohol in, so the medical term alcohol, call it ethanol. All right. So when we drink, alcohol is, it can be considered the fourth macronutrient behind, your carbs, fat, and protein, not because your body needs it, but because by weight and energy expenditure, you're talking about 7 calories per gram. All right, so we know carbs and protein, 4 calories per gram, fats, 9 calories per gram. Alcohol is 7 calories per gram, so it's very, not to say nutrient dense, but it is very energy dense. And there's a lot of uses for alcohol aside from just, drinking for a buzz or having a good time. In the medical community, we still use alcohol everywhere for, alcohol wipes before you get an IV or an injection or anything like that. There's alcohol rinses like your mouthwash. Colognes, perfumes still use alcohols, hand sanitizers, like rubbing alcohols. And actually, it's an antidote for certain poisonings. So if you are poisoned with certain substances, the medical cure for that is ethanol. So it'll be put on usually a drip. So, just a little bit about what it can be used for aside from being bored at home or going out for parties or dinners or what have you. Let's talk about, well, first things first. When it goes down the hatch, it hits your stomach. Not a lot of it, but some of it does get metabolized by the stomach. And this is where I want to talk about the difference between metabolizing versus absorbing. So when your body metabolizes something, it breaks it down and it processes it for either use or removal, as opposed to absorbed by the bloodstream, where it's just going to be free floating. And because it's water soluble, everywhere that your blood goes, that water can go. For the most part, alcohol can go with it. So this is going to affect almost every cell, almost every organ, and it lasts for quite some time until your body can process it. So talking about processing it, the first place it goes after your stomach, small intestine, goes into the bloodstream. The bloodstream brings it straight to your liver. That's why you always hear about liver damage and liver disease and disorders in reference to alcohol, because that is the first stop for the blood leaving your stomach and small intestine. All right. Your liver can only process about 7 grams of alcohol per hour. And when you consider the fact that most drinks in America have about 14 grams of ethanol, you're talking about taking 2 hours for your body to process one drink. I don't know about you guys, but if I am drinking, I probably drink at a faster rate than 1 drink per 2 hours. So you can see where that happens to build up in your body and why it takes so long for your body to process, and why really the only actual cure is time. But alcohol is one of those fascinating things on a chemical level and its reaction with your body. It creates multiple positive feedback loops. So a feedback loop is just a way for your body to process something. So if stimulus A happens, it's going to cause more of reaction B, as opposed to a negative feedback loop where if stimulus A happens, it's going to cause less of situation B. So alcohol being a positive feedback loop, the effect that it has on your liver, it's going to be causing certain processes and metabolic pathways. Those pathways feed back into the system itself, so it's going to cause more toxicity. So the more toxic or the more alcohol you take in, the faster those metabolic pathways are going to be activated. The more those pathways are activated, the more toxic you're going to feel. The more toxic you feel, the more it's going to feed back into itself. All right, so one of those processes, the way that your liver gets rid of it, one of the enzymes in particular, it's acetaldehyde dehydrogenase. All right, that's the enzyme that your body uses to create acetaldehyde. All right, acetaldehyde is extremely toxic to your body. Your body needs to, it will prioritize that first. So, and this is talking about those feedback loops, instead of concentrating on the alcohol now and creating more acetaldehyde from that process, your body will stop doing what it was doing to look at the acetaldehyde and say, we got to do something with this because too much of this will kill us. So that's where the toxic part comes from. When your body sees that, it will go after that first, and it will take the acetaldehyde and it breaks it down into acetate. Acetate's not nearly as toxic. Your body has uses for acetate. Most notably, it's part of the ATP production cycle. So your body will take that acetate, and I think it breaks it down into, I believe it's carbon dioxide and water are the byproducts. But the other byproduct is ATP, which is what your body uses for energy. So because it is so efficient at breaking the acetaldehyde down into energy, drinking and breaking down alcohol, your body kind of prioritizes that as an energy source. And that's where we get that 7 calories per gram from. So because your body recognizes that as an energy source, it doesn't have to break down body fat. It doesn't have to do anything else to come up with more energy because it's right there. It's a byproduct of getting rid of the toxin. So for your body, it's a win-win. It gets more energy while it's getting rid of a toxin. So your body recognizes that, prioritizes that action, and continues that action. So the acetaldehyde dehydrogenase, if you have somebody like Coach Vin, it's typical among the Asian population. So if you've ever had a drink with Coach Vin, you notice that he gets really red really fast. The reason for that is because his body is deficient in acetaldehyde dehydrogenase. When that happens, your body can't use the typical pathway to break down or metabolize the ethanol. So it has to use a secondary pathway. That secondary pathway is, I forget the name of it now. But anyways, it's a more metabolically active. So it increases body temperature and it increases the blood pressure. So that's where you get the flushing of the skin. So there you go, Coach Vin. Let me see, trying to go over my notes here. Oh, and talking about going back to the liver now. Because your liver is too busy doing this now, it kind of drops the ball on its other responsibilities. Most notably is oxidizing fatty acids. When your body can't do that, that's when the buildup of fatty acids happen, and then you get this fatty acid liver disease, which helps with, that's where you get the increase in cholesterol and triglycerides, and that's where all the blood work gets all out of whack. Going from liver and pancreas now. So another side effect of this is when the liver gets distracted or damaged over time, it's not able to maintain or regulate blood sugar as well as it's supposed to. So your blood sugar is probably going to dip a little bit because your liver is not going to be able to recognize that it's getting low, so it can't activate its storage of glycogen, and it can't produce the ketones that it would normally do for a ketogenic diet or to kickstart the blood sugar process. Alternatively, with your pancreas being weakened, it's not going to be able to produce as much insulin as it's supposed to. So with that, your blood sugar is going to be increasing a little bit. So you got these both competing things going on. And on the one hand, you might say, well, if your blood sugar is going to be lower because your liver, but higher because of the lack of insulin, doesn't it kind of balance out? It's to some degree, yeah, in the short term, sure. Over long-term or chronic cases, that causes a big problem when it gets down to the cellular level, because your cells kind of get confused, and then they kind of almost like give up. They kind of build a resilience, and that's where you get your insulin resistance from, or at least one of the things where the insulin resistance comes from, where it's going to take more and more insulin from your pancreas to open up the glucose channels on the cell wall to allow the blood sugar into the cell so that the cell can use it for work. So that's where you kind of get the back and forth. It can cause your type 2 diabetes with the insulin resistance there. Another side effect, there's many things that we've all heard, and I'm not going to bore everybody with all the bad stuff about alcohol, just some of the stuff you might not have heard or been exposed to before. So anybody with gout or anything like that, all of these processes, it can help lead to kidney failure because the increase in uric acid, and that's what gout is. So it's kind of like a third type of arthritis there behind the rheumatoid and osteo. So a buildup of these crystals because your kidneys are not functioning because they're overloaded. The buildup of these crystals, it actually causes that almost like a stabbing sensation, because that's really what's going on. There's physical solid crystals inside of the joints, as opposed to it being this smooth oiled machine. So we've talked about those. So going back to acetaldehyde, that is the substance that generally causes or contributes the most to that hangover sensation. So what on everybody's mind is, how do we get rid of that? Well, first of all, you could try not exposing yourself to it. I know. But if you are going to drink, drink in moderation. Remember, your body can only process one drink every 2 hours. I know growing up, conventionally, we were told your body can process one drink an hour, but it turns out it's one drink for 2 hours. So just keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, CDC recommends no more than 2 drinks a day for men, I believe, but 1 drink for women, just as nature of how our bodies process the alcohol. And then, wrapping up, back to hangovers. So aside from avoidance, you could try either, let me check over here, make sure I'm going to say it right, acetylcysteine, glutathione always comes into play, and then theanine is another amino acid, typically found in green tea. But if you're taking your essential amino acids, or like a post-workout or a pre-workout with BCAAs, most notably the essential amino acids, not necessarily just the branched chain, but take the essential amino acids, get some glutathione and some green tea. Let me see. Anecdotally, I wrote this one down as a little aside. Anecdotally, saturated fatty acids and cholesterol typically have, there is evidence, scientific and anecdotal, that alcohol has a weakened effect on the cell wall, on any cells higher in concentration of cholesterols or fatty acids. So if you've ever had the craving for greasy foods or anything like that, that's kind of your body's way of hinting at how to get rid of this problem. All right, that's all I got for today, guys. Come back next week. We're going to delve more into blood sugar. All right.